Welcome to the eCommerce Badassery podcast, the place for scrappy entrepreneurs who want to learn actionable steps and strategies to grow the traffic, sales, and profit in your e-commerce business. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster, a 20-year retail veteran and former brick-and-mortar boutique owner who spent 3 years as the only employee of a 7-figure online store. That shit was crazy. I know exactly how it feels to do all the things, and I'm sharing everything I learned the hard way so you don't have to. I may have started this business by accident, but supporting badass bosses like you lights me the fuck up, and I am so stoked to see you grow. Are you ready, babe? Let's roll. Welcome back to the eCommerce Badassery podcast. I am your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster. Back in February of 2023, I released a podcast episode called AI Content Generators, What Are They and How to Use Them Properly? At the time, ChatGPT and other AI tools were starting to take off and were all the rage online. I had taken some time to do a deep dive into them, and my biggest takeaway back then was that while they were helpful as an assistant if you struggle with staring at a blinking cursor, the output still left much to be desired. Truthfully, my experience and that of most of my lounge members is that while it can be helpful to get started, creating content that didn't sound AI generated was kind of difficult. I found this to be especially true with longer form content, though it was usually passable for social media captions. And all of those perfect prompts everyone was selling on the internet when they were overnight AI experts didn't really help. Since that episode, I have rarely bothered to use AI in my business to create content. I do use it for some other things like creating timestamps for my podcast episodes and things like that, but not so much for content creation. Mostly because I find it easier to write from scratch than to edit. But all of that changed a few months ago when a mentor of mine who has been digging into AI released a mini course that taught her students how to train the bot to write content that sounds like you. I was skeptical at first, but after working through it, I'm pretty impressed with what I am now able to generate through ChatGPT. I've actually used it to write articles that I include in the SIP, which is the monthly magazine inside the lounge membership. It also has assisted me in some of my podcast episodes, but none of those have been 100% generated by AI. The best part about the process is more than just training the tool to write like me, following her prompts and her process showed me how to better utilize AI overall. And I'm really excited to start developing tools to help you do the same. The first tool that I'm creating and making available to everyone will be similar to the one I use to train ChatGPT how to write like me. I adapted the process I learned from my mentor, originally designed for online educators like me, to fit physical product-based businesses. There are also some tried and true tools and strategies I use when working one-on-one with clients to create their email automations. Part of that project is copywriting, and it's really important that I can write content in their voice. So having gone through that process with multiple clients and refining it along the way, I was able to tap into that while creating this process for you. And I even had a chance to test it out with my most recent done-for-you client, and it was definitely a time saver. Overall, it's a really cool tool, and I'm super excited about it. Not only will it train the bot to write like you for the customer you're trying to reach, but like I experienced, going through the process will give you insight into how to create better prompts and have better conversations with AI moving forward. That masterclass is called the AI Brand Brief, and I'll be releasing it during the Badassery Blitz on December 9th. Current lounge members, I'll be gifting this to you so you don't have to worry about purchasing it separately. Now, aside from using ChatGPT to write content, I've also been using it for research. Historically, ChatGPT wasn't always the best for this because it was only trained with information up through, I think it was initially 2021. There were some additional updates made over time, but now ChatGPT can directly search the internet, getting the most up-to-date information possible. It will also provide you with the sources it used to gather that information so you can double check their reliability. If you are going to use ChatGPT for research, I do recommend you ask it to focus on recent sources if that's necessary for the topic at hand, because it can sometimes give out-of-date information. For example, I used it when researching statistics for the holiday 2024 trends episode, and sometimes it gave me posts and articles that were a few years old. The other really weird thing you have to watch out for is that while it will put the source within the body of the response, for example, at the end of the sentence, sometimes it mixes up the content and the source that it pulled it from. Now, if you're just using it for general research, that's not really a huge deal. But if you're writing an article that you want to link to your sources, just make sure you have the right source for the right piece of information. The other way I've been using ChatGPT lately is for analysis. The first few times I did this was actually with bills from Congress. It was able to summarize the content for me and then answer my follow-up questions, showing me the text in the bill that prompted it to answer that way. Seeing how well it was at analyzing content, I started to think, what else could I apply that to? I started by creating a workbook for my lounge members to help them analyze their Facebook ad results, essentially figuring out why certain copy or images performed better than others. Lounge members, that was shared in the November issue of the SIP, but you can also find it as a lesson inside the Meta Badassery course. Another online educator, Kennedy from Email Marketing Heroes, is teaching ChatGPT to write really great subject lines. So what he does is he'll create a subject line on his own. Then he asks the AI to write a subject line for the same email. He runs them as an A/B test and then submits the results back to ChatGPT and asks it to analyze why the winner was the winner. He said he's been training it for a few months, and now 88% of the time, the AI writes the winning subject line. So he's going to keep doing that, and he's trying to get that number up a little bit higher. This is not something I've tried yet, but I'm definitely intrigued. I have a lot on my to-do list at the moment, but I've got some other ideas on how I might use ChatGPT for analysis, especially when it comes to data analysis, the thing I know so many of us love to do. But my biggest focus at the moment is working AI assistants into my courses to help you implement what I'm teaching faster. I don't want to give away all the details just yet, but for any of my courses that you already own, I will be updating them with these AI tools over the next few months. Don't worry, I will let you know when they are available. The first one I'm finalizing is for Email Badassery. That's the course I launched in beta last year during the Badassery Blitz. My goal now is to create AI tools to help you with portions of that course, including writing the actual emails. For my existing Email Badassery students, you'll get access to that as soon as it's ready. I'll make sure to let you know when it's available. If you didn't get your hands on that course last year, but you're interested in revamping your email automations in 2025, you'll have a chance to snag Email Badassery at a special price during this year's Blitz, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Another feature of ChatGPT that I've been testing out are custom GPTs. These are preset tasks that you create and save so you can process them with the click of a button. For example, the article I mentioned for SIP Magazine, I created a custom GPT where all I have to do is give it an outline of the article I want to create, and it writes the article for me. I don't have to give it any direction about how I want the article written or the brand voice or anything like that because I've already done it, and it's basically stored in this custom GPT. There are also pre-built GPTs that other creators have made that you can use. These can be a little hit or miss. While your ChatGPT account will commit a lot of the conversations that you have with it to memory, you don't have any insight into how that GPT was trained, so it can sometimes create unexpected results. For example, I've used a few different GPTs to help me write code, but some of the ones I tested out were clearly created for developers, and I got more helpful results just in a regular chat. So I think it's fun to go in and look at those GPTs to see what's out there, but then I would also just try and get that same result from a regular chat and see what happens. I am messing around with some custom GPTs that I can share with my students that are trained on certain frameworks I teach. This is proving to be a little bit harder because GPTs work best when they're focused on doing one thing versus having multiple steps. Plus, you have to have the paid version of ChatGPT to create or use them. At $20 a month, it's not super expensive, but still, for my client or student-facing things, I'm going to focus more on step-by-step prompts probably versus custom GPTs. All that said, though, you can easily create them for yourself if you want to. Again, remember that they work best if it only has one task to complete, and these are going to be most helpful for repetitive tasks that you have to do a lot. As I've mentioned, I'm going to be releasing a few different tools and things to help you better utilize ChatGPT, but in the meantime, I want to give you a few quick tips that you can use to start getting better results now. My number one tip is not to do too much at one time. Instead, break your tasks into smaller steps. Just like your custom GPTs work best if they're meant to do one task, the same is true when you're having a regular chat with the bot. Not only will the bot give you better results, but it also makes it easier for you to edit and refine the results as you go. You still want to keep the entire project in one chat because the bot can build off of previous responses, but you want to be able to control the ask and the response as much as possible. And this leads me to my second tip, which is to give the bot feedback as you go. If you make any edits to the output that ChatGPT gives you, I recommend you feed those edits back into the chat so it can learn your preferences. You can also ask for adjustments or alternatives along the way. For example, if you're writing a subject line for an email, you can ask for 3 more alternatives. If you're writing a social media caption, you might tell it to add a call to action at the end. You can also ask it to rewrite the content in a more playful or professional tone, depending upon what you're trying to create. Sometimes it will give you 2 different responses side by side and ask you to pick your favorite. Most of the time, I end up mixing and matching the 2 versions, taking parts from each one. In that case, I'll usually feed the new version I created back in the chat to let it know. Once you do have a final response that you like, make sure you hit that thumbs up at the end of the response so it knows that it did a good job. You'll also want to make sure ChatGPT knows who your customer is. Who are they writing this content for? Developing this and going really deep into who your customer is actually going to be part of the AI brand brief, but you can easily get started with a few sentence blurb about who your ideal customer is. Another really important thing is that before you start using the tool, make sure you have your memory turned on. That's in your account settings. I think mine was turned off by default. Based on your conversations, ChatGPT will decide what it thinks will be useful for future conversations. When it does that, you'll actually see a memory updated notification as it's thinking through the answer. You can also tell it specific things that you want it to commit to memory. Your memory will eventually get full, though you have complete control over what is stored there. For example, after testing out some of my processes with my most recent client's business and just some other industry verticals, I went in and deleted any memories from those chats because I didn't need them anymore and I didn't want to take up that space. As you'll see with the AI brand brief, I also recommend you store any training information outside of ChatGPT so it can be easily referenced and fed back into the tool. While in most cases you won't need it, it's definitely helpful to have because the memory space is limited. And if you ever wanted to go try out a different tool to see what sort of results you got, at least you have that all stored somewhere else that's easy to copy and paste. It's also important to remember that ChatGPT isn't good at all things. For example, I don't love it as much for coming up with marketing campaigns or promotions. While it can be good to get some ideas and spark some creativity, sometimes the recommendations it gives you are better in theory than in practice. For example, I had a student tell me they got an idea from ChatGPT to run a different deal every Friday through the month of November. Yes, it sounds fun and exciting and different, and you hope that it's going to help you stand out. But in my experience, those kinds of promotions don't yield good enough results for the amount of work and effort you have to put into it, especially if you have a smaller audience overall. And I recommended she stick to a simpler strategy of offering a promotion over consecutive days. I may change my mind about this at some point, but right now I find AI tools to be best at research, content creation, and analysis. At the end of the day, getting great results does take some practice, but admittedly, I'm much more sold on it than I was a couple of years ago. I'm definitely excited to keep exploring its capabilities and creating tools to help you be more efficient in your e-commerce business. I'll, of course, be keeping you updated as these tools are available, but if you want to keep up to date with the Badassery Blitz deals this year, I recommend you hop on my email list. You can go to ecommercebadassery.com/free stuff to sign up. It's not a Blitz specific waitlist, but it will get you access to my free resource library, and I'll certainly get you all the details for the sale. I will be releasing more information about it over the next couple of weeks. And that's a wrap on this week's episode. If you have thoughts or feedback that you want to share about your experience using ChatGPT or things that you wish you could do, you could always DM me on Instagram. I don't hang out there very much, but I will see your message if it comes through. And if you're a lounge member, you could obviously post your ideas in the activity feed, or there is actually a post where I ask you about your AI struggles, and so you could always comment there as well. In either case, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this was helpful. We're going to be talking more about AI. Stay tuned for what's to come, and I'll see you on the flip side, friend. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to learn more about growing your e-commerce business, get started with my free resource library at ecommercebadassery.com/free stuff. And get an invite to The Lounge, my e-commerce marketing membership. When you're ready for one-on-one support, apply to work with me at ecommercebadassery.com/apply. Before you go, would you do me a quick favor? Leave a rating and review and tap that follow button. This pushes me up the chart so I can support more scrappy e-commerce entrepreneurs just like you. I'm on a mission to reach as many as I can, and I could really use your help. Thanks so much in advance. Until next time, e-commerce friend, stay badass.